Hi there. I'm Mike Micklon, the Executive Artistic Director at Johnson Hall right here in beautiful Gardner, Maine. And I'm excited today to bring you a presentation of our Artists in the Schools program. And that is brought to you by great support from the Onion Foundation and E.J. Prescott. And today you are in for a treat because we have the amazing Maine author, Lynn Plourde. We hope you enjoy.
Hello everybody. I would like to share with you the story behind the story of MAXI'S Secrets. I wrote this book and I'm the author of about 40 kids books, but this is the only chapter book that I've ever written. And so I want to share with you how I came to write this. And you can think about when you do your own writing, are there things that happen in your life that could influence something that you write? So you can tell that it's, well, you should know, MAXI'S Secrets, and the subtitle is, or what you can learn from a dog. So this is the picture of a dog on the front. I'm gonna have you guys, any of you guys have pets? Do a show of hands in your classroom so everybody can see how many of you have pets. Any of you have dogs? Okay, I'm definitely a dog person. So I wrote this book not because of that white dog, but because of this black dog. That is my dog, Maggie. And we had Maggie for almost 14 years. She was the canine love of my life. And when she was gone, I was sad and I thought, what's a way I can honor her? And I thought I could write a story. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna write a story about my Maggie. And I know you're gonna ooh and ah, because she was a beautiful dog. She was part Irish setter and she looked like a black Irish setter. Her mom was an Irish setter and her dad 2 other things. So she was just a beautiful dog. And she was also a sweet puppy. You can see her there. But then she got to be an old girl. And if any of you have older dogs, you can see here her snout was turning white. She was panting because it's harder to breathe for older dogs. Her eyes were sunken in. And this wasn't too long before we had to have her put down because she had a medical issue. You can see, there's my Maggie, and there's the cover of my book, MAXI'S Secrets. Maggie, Maxie, Maxie, Maggie. I couldn't change the name very much. In my mind, I was writing about my Maggie. But why in the world would I go from a black dog to a white dog? There's a reason. I was going to write all about Maggie, and then my husband and I did a trip to LL Bean in Freeport. And when I came out of the store to go back in and get something I'd forgotten, he said, I just met the most wonderful dog. It was a deaf dog. And at that moment, I had a light bulb moment. I don't know when you guys write, if you ever get the light bulb moment and you think you know what you're writing about. And then you have the light bulb moment and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this would be a better idea. My light bulb moment, I said, I'm gonna make the dog in my story deaf. Because if I had a choice to write about a dog that could hear or a dog that was deaf, what do you think as readers you'd rather read about? Yeah, most would say the deaf dog. You haven't read books about deaf dogs. It seems more interesting. It's a more original idea. So, okay, I could have just made my Maggie deaf, but I did some research. Even when you write fiction, you have to do research. And what I found when I researched is most deaf dogs are white. I never knew that before. It's something about when they're forming in their mother's womb, they get their hearing at the same time they're getting their coloring when they're just forming as a dog in their mother. And so I had to be true. If I was going to make the dog deaf, I had to have a white dog. So bye-bye, my beautiful Maggie. So I went with a white dog. I could have chosen a lot of different breeds. I could have chosen a boxer that's what my husband saw that day, was a white boxer, a Dalmatian, a white poodle. But I already knew part of my story. And the main character of my story, Timony, he's the shortest kid in his whole school. Whole school, shortest. So if I had a short kid, when you guys think about it, show me with your hands, Short kid, what size dog should I have? Yeah, big dog, because I love the contrast between. So I searched for big dogs, and they don't look so big when they're little. They're Great Pyrenees, and they're just cute little puppies. But they don't stay little. Great Pyrenees can grow to be between 100 and 200 pounds. They're huge. There's the big dog I needed for the story. But their nickname is gentle giants. So even though they're big, you can put them around babies and toddlers, and they're just as gentle as can be. They also don't know they're big dogs. They think they can climb on your lap or get on the furniture. They don't realize they're just like any little dog would be. So, all right. I want to share with you a section from Maxie's Secrets. Read it to you. And now you know why my Maggie turned into a Great Pyrenees. I'm going to share with you the story when Maxie and Timony meet each other. So the boy's name is Timony, and it's a combination of two grandfathers' names, but I came up with that name because he's going to have a part of his name be Minnie, because he gets nicknames for being so short, so little. So you know, Timony's so short, and Maxie is a big Great Pyrenees, but he's getting her when she's a puppy, and they're going to a breeder's. You guys probably are aware that people get dogs, often they go to the animal shelter, which is a great place to get dogs who don't have a home, but they went to a breeder's. So, actually, the first time, and Timony's the character talking, the narrator, actually the first time I met Maxie, I didn't notice anything different about her. I don't think she noticed anything different about me either. My parents and I stepped inside the circular wire fence for a closer look at the 7 pups for sale in the litter. One puppy began circling me, keeping the others away. I scooped it up, nose to snout, and smooch slurp. This is the one, I told my parents. But what about one of the boys, Dad asked. Dad, I'm your boy. Time to mix things up with a girl. Are you sure this is the first puppy ad we've answered? Mom whispered so the breeder wouldn't hear. And we have 3 more places to check. Maybe we should see those first. Maxie wouldn't stop licking me. She's crazy about me, Mom. But some of the other breeds we're looking at are different. They're not quite as, spit it out, Mom, big. The other breeds aren't as big as Great Pyrenees. You're worried your puppy will grow up to be bigger than your son. I was going to say white Timony. It'll be hard to keep a white dog clean. I made Mom a bunch of kid promises. I'll give her a bath twice a week. I'll brush her teeth so you can't tell where her white fur ends and her white teeth begin. Then I really piled it on. Please, you move me to this new town where I'm all alone. And they did move to a new town. Timony had to move from Portland, Maine, to a town far out in the willy-whacks of Maine, and to a new town where I'm all alone and have no friends. This pup is all I've got. Dad looked at Mom. Give it up, Linda. You've already lost this one. Thanks, Dad, I said, grateful that I didn't have to turn on the tears. I would have if I had to. After they paid and we were holding Maxie into the car, Dad opened the back hatch. I'll hold on to her in the back seat with me, I said. No, Timony, she's going back here in the crate we brought. That's mean, Dad. Look, she's shivering. She's never been away from her pack before. If I hold her, she'll still know she has a pack, just a new one. Mom piped in. But what if she does her business in the car? She won't. Let's see if she has to go now. And if she still goes in the car, I'll clean it up. Mom looked skeptical, but didn't say anything as I led Maxie around the breeder's yard with a leash. Actually, she led me around the yard as she stopped to sniff every 2 feet. 2 feet sniff. 2 feet sniff, sniff. 2 feet sniff, sniff, sniff. 2 feet sniff, sniff, sniff. Squat. Pee. Success! I was prouder than the big time I peed I was prouder than the first time I peed by myself on the potty chair. See, Mom? I climbed into the back seat with Maxie. Linda, Dad looked at Mom for permission to drive off. Kenneth, Mom threw the question right back at him. Oh, okay, he said with a sigh. Are you buckled up back there? The 2-legged one is buckled, Dad. Not sure how to buckle the 4-legged one. Dad gave me one of those looks in the rearview mirror. I shut my trap before he put me into the crate in the back. I'd fit. As we headed home, the more Maxie quivered, the tighter I held her. I was hoping she'd doze off, but instead she started whining, so I held her even tighter. Too tight, I guess. Squeezed something right out of her. I froze, hoped no one would notice. But Mom sniffed and looked at Dad. "Kenneth, is that you?" "Not me," said Dad. "Kenneth." She didn't believe him. Whenever Dad cuts the cheese, he always denies it and says, "First one who smelt it must have dealt it." When Dad didn't give his smelt it line, Mom realized he wasn't the one who dealt it. "Timony," they both shouted. "Wasn't me." "The puppy?" My parents were getting good at talking in unison. Why don't they make diapers for puppies?" I asked. "After all, they're just babies." Secret number 2, sometimes love stinks. Every chapter ends with a secret or a learning from that. All right, so you have a sense of Timony, the main character who's so short, and Maxie the dog. I want to read you now a part of the story that is the climax of the story. And I'm going to have you guys think, what is the climax of the story? The climax is the big deal moment. If you drew a line for a story, it'd be like the mountains going up. It's the big deal moment. But I also think the climax of a story is when the main character in the story changes. They were a certain way before the climax happened, and they were a different way after. So in this scene, I think Timony actually changes in the story. What you have to know about this scene and the climax of the story is you already know about Timony, and you know about Maxie, who is deaf. When Timony got Maxie, he didn't know she was deaf, but they figured that out later on. Timony in this new town has a next door neighbor, Abby. She's blind. So this is a book about fitting in. I've got a character who's blind, I've got a character who's deaf, a character who's very short, and there's other characters that need to try to fit in. Abby, in this climax of the story, she's blind. She's lost in the woods in Maine in a snowstorm. So I got to my big deal moment for a climax. It's like, that is definitely a big deal. And she's lost by herself. So in this scene, they're looking for Abby. So Timony, of course, is looking for his friend Abby. And he's going to take Maxie with him because even though Maxie is deaf, dogs have great senses of smell, so she'd be able to help with that. There's also Abby's dad in the story looking for his daughter, and Timony's dad who's looking. So those are the characters you need to know. You won't know how it turns out at the end, but it definitely is a big deal moment in the story. Finding Abby's phone was a gut punch. Part of me had hoped she was asleep under her covers or reading a Braille book in her closet, and her parents had somehow missed her when they'd looked. The idea of her being out in these woods alone in a snowstorm was a nightmare that was now real. We didn't say anything more. That's Timony, his dad, and Abby's dad, and Maxie all looking. We didn't say anything more, not to one another. There was nothing to say. We shouted, "Abby, Abby, Abby," out into the storm as we kept following Maxie's lead. Maxie was our hope. She wanted to find Abby as much as we did, and she seemed to be on her trail. All of a sudden, sounds blasted at us from opposite directions. "Anyone there? This is the warden service. Vroom, vroom, vroom." The first sound squawked from a bullhorn. The warden service, the expert searchers, had arrived to search for Abby, a relief. Excuse me. The second sound was Rory's ATV. Rory is a neighbor on the other side, lives on the other side of Timony, and he's the tallest kid in the school. Rory's ATV. Somehow that was a bigger relief to me. He knew these woods, and he'd do anything for Abby. There was a third sound, too, but I was the only one who heard it, a little whine, more like a whimper. I looked down. It was Maxie. She looked up at me with begging eyes. I knew what she was telling me. She wanted to find Abby, and we were holding her back. The snow was falling harder, and visibility was getting poorer, but I felt like I could see things more clearly than I had since we'd started searching. I cleared my throat. Dad, why don't you follow our footsteps back to where we found Abby's phone and stay there so the wardens will know that's the last known location for her? Dad nodded. I continued, Mr. Winslow, that's Abby's dad, head toward the sound of the warden's bullhorn. Lead them back to Dad and tell them Maxie is on Abby's scent, but we haven't found her yet. Mr. Winslow nodded. I gulped. Were they really going to listen to me? Finally, I said, I'm heading toward the vroom. It's Rory on his ATV. He knows these woods. He travels in them all the time. Maybe he's seen something or has ideas where to look. I'll update him on what we found. Haven't found. Dad and Mr. Winslow looked at each other as if to ask, got a better plan? Dad said, are you sure you can find Rory, Timony? I don't need you missing too. Yes, Dad. He'll be on the wide trail up ahead. I'll just follow the sound of his engine. Plus, I have Maxie. If I can't find Rory, I'll have Maxie lead me back to Abby's house. He couldn't see my fingers crossed behind my back. Dad nodded, then reached out to give me a hug. We each headed off in our separate directions. When we were far enough away, I leaned down and lifted Maxie's snout to look her right in the eyes. Are you sure, girl? She whined. I knew her answer, but I wanted to hear it again. Okay, I trust you. Tell Abby I sent you. I put Abby's phone in front of Maxie's snout for a final sniff to remind her of the treasure she was searching for. But she didn't need a reminder. She knew. She whined once more, then leaned in and gave me one of her hugs as I kissed the top of her head. She ran off. Just like that, she was gone, her whiteness blending into the falling snow. I tried following in the direction she'd gone, but I couldn't keep up, and soon her paw prints were covered by snow. I still stopped and hollered every 10 steps, Abby, Abby, Maxie. Maxie couldn't hear me, but I needed to say her name because I was looking for her too. I waited and listened. Nothing. I stayed on the wide open trail since I didn't know which way to go, and I'd only get myself lost. Lost. That word pounced on me. I tried to shake it off, but it dug in its claws. What if you lost both of them, Timony? Abby and Maxie. It'll be your fault, you know. All your fault. You weren't there for Abby when you promised her one more walk in the woods, and you let Maxie go into storm, into danger alone. Lost. Both lost. Forever lost. I balled up my fists inside my mittens and swung at those words swirling around my head. Shut up, I screamed. I don't care what you say. Leave me alone. I'm not playing your games anymore. I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I have stuff to do. Gotta find my girls. I stomped through the snow and headed in the direction I thought Maxie had gone. I couldn't be sure, but I was sure I was doing my best, and that's all I could do. Secret number 40, there's no guarantee your best is good enough. I gave you a cliffhanger and climax of the story and a hint of Timony, how he changes. If you check the book out, you'll realize Timony always felt sorry for himself. But if he wanted to feel sorry about himself looking for Abby and for Maxie, I don't think he would have had any success. We hope he had some success in the book. So that's the story behind the story. And if you guys are interested in stories behind stories, you can look at novels such as Maxie's Secrets, and there's always an afterword in the back by the author that often tells where the ideas for the story came from. Or you can check out an author's website and see where they get their ideas. And that might help you with some of your own writing. So good luck writing stories, and then you can tell your friends the stories behind your stories that you created. Thank you.